Good afternoon, everyone. We are the security team for Royal Duke Infrastructure Group, a company that works behind the scenes to keep operations seamless, delivering electricity and industrial water to data centers across Northern Virginia. So this is where the location changes the risk equation. Royal Duke supports data centers across London, Prince William, and Fairfax County, the largest concentration of data centers around in the world. And so a disruption here doesn't stay local. It can ripple into AI platforms, cloud infrastructure, and government systems nationwide. And that's how real world actors like Volt Typhoon operate. They don't need a huge failure. They just need a smallest gap to exploit. So it was after hours when our monitoring signaled something was off. A vendor connection was active outside our normal expectations, and so we moved very quickly, validated that it did not belong, and cut it off before it could reach operational systems. And nothing went down this time. But the moment still mattered. It showed us that our controls left this room for access to exist when it shouldn't have. So in OT, that room is exactly what attackers look for, and this is how a small oversight can become a real incident. And so after this occurred, we met with our leadership. And this leadership led to a discussion where we had to address four main points. This included their focus was clear: what truly must not fail, what is most likely to cause disruption, and what we can realistically implement without interrupting 24/7 operations or losing sight of cost.
This slide here is to make one thing clear: what we must protect first. These are the OT assets that directly enable and control Royal Duke's critical infrastructure. So they are the systems that we focus on when we talk about vulnerabilities and safeguards that these hackers try to access. SCADA systems and PLCs sit at the center because they manage real operational control, while HMIs and engineering workstations are the tools people use to monitor and change how the environment behaves. By identifying these core assets upfront, we can stay disciplined about where risk matters most and make sure every vulnerability we address tied back to protecting power and water delivery. Before we talk even threats, we have to get grounded in what we're protecting first. These are Royal Duke's operational crown jewels, the things that must not fail at all. At the center is our OT visibility. It's the real-time view operators depend on. If that view is delayed, altered, or taken away, we're not just slower, we're running blind. Then there are the PLCs, the hands of the operation. They drive pumps, open valves, and keep power and water moving. If someone reaches them, this isn't a data problem anymore. It becomes physical control. Next are the engineering workstations, the keys. These are the systems that can change logic and settings. On the safety side, we have protection relays. They fail safe. They're designed to stop unsafe outcomes before they even become a threat or a danger or downtime. If those protections are bypassed or misconfigured, the consequences escalate fast. And finally, we have historians, our operational memory. They record trends like pressure, temperature, and flow. If that memory is missing or manipulated, response turns into guesswork. So when leadership asks what must not fail, this is the answer. Because if any of these is disrupted, the impact, it isn't just technical, it becomes operational. Once we understood what assets matter most, the next step was to ask about how those assets are most likely to be put at risk. This assessment compares likelihood and impact to separate theoretical concerns from real operational risk. What stands out is that access and boundary related issues rise to the top: remote access, weak IT to OT, separation, and unpatched OT systems. These are not the most dramatic threats, but they are the most realistic paths into operations. This ranking is what allows us to focus on the risks that deserve action first, before smaller issues turn into larger operational events.
Now let's start this to a realistic attacker path. In our environment, incidents usually start with a remote or vendor connection that shouldn't be there. Because remote access already exists, the attacker only needs one opening: weak access controls, an outdated system, or a boundary that isn't as tight. And then they move towards a system that run operations. If they reach the control environment, they learn what normal looks like and then shift to changing it, interrupting processes or forcing a shutdown that looks like a technical failure. And for Royal Duke, if that impacts substations, pumps, or cooling, the result is immediate: data center downtime and serious operational disruption. Bottom line, one unauthorized access pass can become an operational event. Connecting this to a second realistic attacker path, in this case, the incident doesn't begin in OT, it begins in the IT network, where attackers break in first and then move sideways towards operations. The attacker only needs one opening: a flat network, shared credentials, or permissive firewalls, and that weak boundary becomes the bridge onto OT systems like HMIS and monitoring tools. Once they reach that environment, they can disrupt visibility and interfere what operators can see and record, showing alone the uncertainty force that comes from precautionary slowdowns and shutdowns. And if the compromise spreads across multiple sites, the impact escalates quickly. Broader operational disruption, wider impact sales, and all extended downtime. Connecting this to a realistic third attacker path. In this case, the problem starts with legacy or end-of-life OT devices that can't be patched quickly or weren't built with modern protections in mind. The attacker only needs one opening, a known vulnerability, or an outdated controller, a slow update cycle, or equipment that has to stay online, and that creates an easy foothold into the control environment. Once they compromise that device, they can maintain access for long periods and reach our PLCs and other operation systems, disrupting monitoring or influencing control functions over time. And it doesn't have to be loud to be damaging. Manipulation can lead to instability, equipment damage, and unplanned shutdowns that ripple into service impacts.
Now we've established the potential impact of OT cyber incidents. This slide shows how we reduce the risk in practical, financially justified ways. First, insecure remote access. Most real-world OT incidents don't start with malware. They start with a valid login stolen password, a reused vendor access, or access that stays open too long. We close the front door with one approved remote access path, multi-factor authentication, and time-bounded access. This reduces expected annual loss by about $1 million at a fraction of that cost. Second, weak IT OT segmentation. If an attacker gets into IT, segmentation determines whether that becomes an operational event. By enforcing an OT demilitarized zone and deny by default pathways, we limit lateral movement and contain incidents before they reach control systems, reducing blast radius and impact. Third, unpatched and end-of-life OT systems. Many OT systems can't be patched quickly, but unmanaged assets are predictable targets. A living asset inventory and structured patching process reduces exposure to known exploits and removes the easiest attacker's path, often with strong return because the cost is relatively low. At the bottom, the table translates these controls into cost versus avoided loss. We model a conservative annual expected loss of $5 million and shows how each mitigation reduces exposure independently. The benefits are directional, not addictive. But together, they turn cybersecurity from a technical expense into a measurable risk reduction investment. This slide answers one leadership question. If a cybersecurity happens, what does it cost us? For Royal Duke Infrastructure, the first hit is operational downtime, realistically 12 to 48 hours of disruption across multiple data centers that triggers direct financial loss in the 8 to 25 million range, plus 2 to 6 million of recovery and repairs. Put together, one major incident can land about 15 to 40 million plus, which is why our safeguard are financial risk controls, not extra security. This slide shows how the economics actually balance out. Royal Duke's annual security investment is on the order of $1 to $2 million. That's the steady predictable cost. Now compare that to a single major breach, which we showed can easily exceed $15 to $40 million. When you put those side by side, prevention delivers a 10 to 20 times return in cost avoidance. We are not trying to eliminate all risk. We're reducing the chance that one incident becomes a material financial event. So this isn't security spending for its own sake. It's a financial risk control and operational resilience investment that protects availability, contracts, and trust.
So after the risks, leadership asks, what's the plan? This visual is a roadmap. It's the three phases connected left to right, showing how we move quick wins to long-term resilience. And the first box is where we shrink the attack surface fast, get full OT visibility, tighten access, and lock down the IT and OT boundary. The middle box is where we see the problem sooner, stronger OT monitoring, and a clear incident response process. And then the third box is where we see how we make it sustainable, modernize legacy systems and automate patching and risk tracking, networking. So the arrows are the point. Each phase builds on the last, and we reduce exposure first, spill detection next, and strengthen our resilience, our time without disrupting 24/7 operations. And so this analysis just kind of goes to show that Royal Duke's greatest risk is not an advanced cyber weapon, but everyday gaps in access. It's the little things. A disciplined annual investment of roughly 1 to 2 million can significantly reduce the likelihood and impact of these incidents. So it's a worthwhile investment. Otherwise, it could cost upwards of 15 to 40 million. And so in an environment where failure is not an option, this is not a security expense. It is how Royal Duke ensures that what must not fail does not fail. And this concludes our presentation.